The ZYX-7 was a creature that should not exist according to every moral code in the human galaxy. Dr. Kaya Venter had seen the classified files marked with red warnings, had watched the security footage of its creation, and yet nothing could have prepared her for the moment she stood in front of the massive beast for the first time. The creature was 7 meters tall, its body a nightmare of evolution and genetic engineering combined. Scales that shimmered between purple and black covered its muscular frame. For arms ended in claws that could tear through reinforced steel. Its eyes, however, those were the most disturbing feature. They held intelligence. They held awareness. They held something that looked far too much like a soul for something created in a laboratory. The military called it a war machine. The scientists called it a biological weapon. No one called it alive in the official reports, though everyone who looked into those eyes knew the truth was far more complicated. Kaya had been transferred to the research station Omega 3 months ago under strict conditions. She was told to study the creature's behavior, to understand its combat efficiency, and to help optimize its neural implants for better command compliance. She was told not to form any attachment. She was told to remember that this thing was nothing more than a tool forged in fire and suffering. She had tried to follow those orders. She had really tried. The ZYX-7 was kept in a massive reinforced chamber deep beneath the station. The walls were made of durasteel, a metal so hard that even the creature's claws left only scratches. The floor was reinforced with magnetic plates that could paralyze the beast if it became too aggressive. Cameras monitored every moment. Scientists watched from behind thick protective glass. And always, there were soldiers with weapons loaded with a special tranquilizer that could drop the creature in seconds. Kaya had named it Krell in her private notes, though she would never speak the name out loud. The military didn't approve of personalizing the weapon. Calling something by a name made it too real, too individual. It made people start thinking about it as something more than a tool. Kaya had already made that mistake with her mind, even if she kept it hidden from everyone else. The creature had been grown in artificial wombs using DNA samples from 3 different alien species, spliced together with human genetic material. The result was something unprecedented, a predator with strength, speed, and resilience that made it nearly unstoppable. The neural implants embedded in its skull could receive direct commands through a military communication channel. The creature's loyalty was supposedly absolute. It didn't think about morality or right and wrong. It simply did what it was told. At least that was the theory. The truth was far more nuanced, and Kaya had begun to notice cracks in the official narrative. In her 3 months at the station, she had documented 17 instances where Krell seemed to have interpreted orders in ways that suggested free will. Once, when ordered to tear apart a training dummy, the creature had deliberately avoided destroying the central power core, the very thing the engineers had wanted tested. Another time, when commanded to attack a simulated enemy target, Krell had stopped 15 meters away and simply stood there, despite the pain of the neural implants when disobedience occurred. The implants were supposed to ensure absolute compliance. They delivered punishment through pain stimulation whenever the creature refused a direct order. Kaya had watched Krell take that pain many times, had seen the massive body flinch and shake, had heard sounds that might have been screams if the creature's vocal cords allowed for such human expressions. Yet somehow, in small ways, Krell kept finding ways to resist. Not blatantly, not obviously, but the resistance was there for anyone intelligent enough to see it. Kaya's career in biological research had been built on her ability to see patterns where others saw only data. She had published papers on adaptation, on survival mechanisms, on the incredible ways that life found to persist against impossible odds. That same analytical mind was now recognizing something that terrified her. The creature in the chamber was becoming something more than its programming. The command staff had brought her into a secure briefing room 5 days ago. General Morrison was a woman who looked like she had been carved from granite, all sharp angles and colder judgment. With her were 3 other military personnel and Dr. Zane, the lead genetic engineer responsible for creating ZYX-7. "We're deploying it," General Morrison had announced without preamble. "The Valkyrs have been making moves in the outer colonies. We need to send a message that will stop them cold. The ZYX-7 is ready for real combat." Kaya had felt her stomach drop. She had written her reports carefully, noting the behavioral anomalies while being cautious not to recommend shelving the project. She understood the geopolitics of her work. The military needed weapons to defend human space. The Valkyrs were a genuine threat, a hostile alien species that had been probing human defenses for years. The creature was supposed to be the great equalizer, the thing that would tip the balance. But it was alive, not in the official sense, not in the way that would legally grant it protections or rights, but alive in the way that mattered, alive in the way that made what they were about to do feel wrong. When? She had asked, keeping her voice neutral. 2 weeks, Dr. Zane had replied. We're running final combat simulations now. The creature will be transported to the forward operating base and deployed with the next military engagement. That had been 5 days ago. Since then, Kaya had observed Krell more carefully than ever before. The creature seemed aware that something had changed. There was a restlessness to its movements, a tension in those powerful shoulders. When Kaya entered the observation chamber, something she did twice a day now, against all protocol, the creature would turn its head and follow her with those impossibly intelligent eyes. Yesterday, something had shifted between them. Kaya had been alone in the observation chamber, doing final readings on Krell's neural implants, when the creature had made a sound. It wasn't a roar or a hiss. It was something quieter, something that might have been a question. The massive head had pressed against the reinforced glass wall, right at the spot where Kaya stood on the other side. For a moment, separated by only a few centimeters of durasteel, woman and creature had looked at each other. Kaya had pressed her palm against the cold glass. And Krell, the bioengineered war machine, had pressed one enormous claw against the opposite side, matching her hand position perfectly. That's when Kaya knew that everything was about to change. The creature was no longer just a weapon that could follow orders. It had become something that could make choices. The question was whether anyone would survive the moment when it exercised that freedom, and more importantly, what those choices would be. The transport shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Kepler Station with a rumble that shook everyone inside. Kaya gripped the edge of her seat, her eyes fixed on the cargo container in the center of the hold. Inside that reinforced prison of durasteel and magnetic fields, Krell was being carried toward its purpose. Toward war. Toward the thing it had been created to do. Kaya wasn't supposed to be on this flight. Scientists and researchers didn't accompany weapons to deployment zones. But General Morrison had surprised her by specifically requesting her presence. You know the creature better than anyone, Morrison had said, her granite features giving nothing away. We want you available if behavioral issues arise during deployment. It's a precaution, nothing more. Kaya knew better than to believe that explanation. She suspected the general wanted insurance, someone familiar with the creature who could potentially intervene if something unexpected happened. Because the truth that everyone was carefully avoiding was that the ZYX-7 remained an unknown quantity. No one truly understood what it was capable of or how it would respond to actual combat rather than training simulations. The landing was gentle, which surprised her. Kepler Station was an old military outpost built on a barren moon, far from any civilian population. The base was spread across several connected structures, all built low to the ground and reinforced against external attack. As Kaya descended the ramp behind the creature's transport container, she could see soldiers in combat gear stationed at every entrance, every window, every vantage point. They were expecting the Valkyrs to make a move soon. They were preparing for a fight that had been threatened but never truly delivered. Until now. Until Krell. The creature was placed in a specialized holding facility beneath the main base. It was smaller than the chamber back at the research station, and Kaya could see the tension in Krell's body as the magnetic plates activated, locking it in position. The creature turned its massive head, searching, and its eyes found Kaya's immediately among the assembled soldiers and officers. She felt the connection like a physical thing, as though invisible threads ran between them across the space of the room. That evening, Kaya was given quarters in the officer section, a small room with a cot, a desk, and a window that looked out across the desolate surface of the moon. She tried to sleep and couldn't. Her mind kept replaying the moment in the observation chamber, the way Krell's claw had matched her hand placement against the glass. She kept thinking about what was coming, about the Valkyr ships that intelligence reports suggested were massing at the edge of the system. At midnight, She did something that would have ended her career if anyone found out about it. She accessed the secure terminal in her quarters using override codes that Dr. Zane had given her, codes that were supposed to be used only for data verification and behavioral logging. She pulled up Krell's neural implant readings from the past week. The data was startling. The creature's neural activity had been increasing, not in the patterns associated with aggression or compliance, but in ways that suggested active thinking, problem-solving, pattern recognition that went beyond the programmed training cycles. According to the readings, Krell's brain was becoming more complex, more organized. The creature wasn't deteriorating or stabilizing. It was evolving, right there in the facility, even with the limiting effects of the military neural implants. Kaya closed the terminal and sat in the darkness, her heart racing. She understood what this meant. The implants couldn't contain Krell indefinitely. They were designed for control, yes, but they were also inflicting constant pain whenever the creature tried to think too independently. That pain was shaping the neural development, forcing it into pathways that tried to resist the programming. Like water wearing away at stone, Krell's consciousness was finding new routes around the barriers imposed by the implants. The breakthrough moment came 2 days later. Kaya was monitoring Krell in the holding facility, accompanied by a junior officer named Thompson who had been assigned to assist her. The creature's vitals were stable, though Kaya could see the frustration in the twitching of those massive muscles, the constant pressing against the magnetic restraints. General Morrison entered the chamber with several tactical officers. She was holding a datapad and wore an expression of grim satisfaction. "We've confirmed Valkyr movement on the outer sensors," Morrison announced. "They're coming in hard and fast. We'll have engagement in approximately 6 hours. We're deploying the ZYX-7 to the forward combat zone immediately." Kaya felt ice crystallize in her stomach. 6 hours wasn't enough time. They hadn't properly tested the creature in actual combat, hadn't verified that the neural implants would hold under stress, hadn't confirmed anything beyond theoretical projections and simulation data. "General, I would recommend additional preparation time," Kaya said carefully. "The creature's neural patterns suggest the creature is ready." Morrison cut her off, her tone making it clear the discussion was over. "We have a military situation that requires immediate response. This is what it was created for. This is what we've spent millions on. This is the purpose." Thompson placed his hand on his weapon as Krell suddenly lunged against the magnetic restraints, the magnetic plates humming with increased power as they compensated for the creature's strength. Krell's eyes remained fixed on Kaya the entire time, and she could see something in that gaze that looked like desperation. The creature was afraid. Not of the combat. Not of the danger. It was afraid of something else, something Kaya was only beginning to understand. As the general and her officers left the chamber, Kaya approached the restrained creature. Thompson moved to stop her, but she held up her hand authoritatively, using every bit of the status her scientific credentials granted her. "Stand down, officer. I need to perform a final neural compliance check." Thompson hesitated but obeyed. Kaya stepped directly in front of the massive creature, looking up into those intelligent eyes. "What is it?" she whispered, so quietly that no one else could hear. "What are you afraid of?" Krell's breathing was heavy, his body trembling against the magnetic restraints. The creature made a low sound, not quite a growl, not quite anything Kaya could identify. But she understood the feeling behind it because she felt it too. For the first time since arriving at Kepler Station, Kaya fully understood the terrible truth of her situation. She wasn't here as a scientist observing data. She was here as something far more personal. Krell had chosen her, not consciously at first, perhaps, but chosen her nonetheless. And in the next 6 hours, Krell would be forced into combat with orders that might compel it to do things that would destroy whatever connections between them had formed. When the moment came, when Krell faced the decision between following commands and something else, something deeper and more human than any of its creation intended, Kaya would be the one to face the consequences. She would be the one responsible for whatever happened next. The reality of that settled on her shoulders like a weight that could never be lifted again. The Valkyr assault came exactly as predicted, but worse than anyone had anticipated. The ships descended through the atmosphere like metal birds of prey, their weapons systems tearing into the outer defenses of Kepler Station before anyone could respond effectively. Kaya was in the command center when the first explosions rattled the walls, sending tremors through the floor and throwing officers off their feet. General Morrison stood at the command console, her face carved in stone as tactical information flooded the screens around her. The Valkyrs weren't just probing. They were committing an actual invasion force, something that violated every previous pattern of their behavior. Military analysts would debate the reasons for years, but right now, in this moment, the reason didn't matter. What mattered was survival. Deploy the ZYX-7, Morrison commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. Now, Kaya watched through the security feeds as the magnetic restraints released Krell from the holding facility. The creature was transported through underground tunnels directly to the forward combat zone, where explosive charges had already torn open a section of the outer perimeter. The Valkyr soldiers were already breaching the outer structures, advancing toward the main base with relentless efficiency. The first Valkyr unit that encountered Krell learned the meaning of desperation. The ZYX-7 exploded from the underground tunnel with terrifying speed, its four arms moving with perfect coordination. One Valkyr soldier lost its weapon, another lost its ability to continue fighting. Krell moved through them like a natural disaster, unstoppable and overwhelming. The neural implants were driving the creature forward, channeling its rage and power toward a single purpose: eliminate all threats. For the first 10 minutes, the strategy worked. Krell held the breach, preventing the Valkyr invasion from pushing deeper into the station. More reinforcements arrived, and the ground combat became a brutal stalemate with Krell as the overwhelming advantage on humanity's side. Then everything changed. Intelligence reported that the Valkyr command ship was preparing a strike on the central command center. The blast would be massive, indiscriminate. It would kill everyone in the immediate vicinity, which included both military personnel and the research staff sheltering deeper in the base. The only way to prevent it was to neutralize the command ship's targeting system, which required someone to get through the Valkyr forces and reach their communication relay station. That relay station was directly behind Krell's position. The orders came through the neural implant system. Kaya watched from the command center as General Morrison issued the command personally. Retreat to secondary position. Maintain perimeter, but fall back 200 meters. Allow designated unit to pass through your position. Kaya understood what was happening. They were going to send a human strike team to destroy the relay station, and they needed Krell to move aside so the team could get through. Simple enough, unless the Valkyrs used that repositioning to collapse the defensive line. But Krell didn't move. The creature was standing directly in front of the relay station, and the neural implant command to retreat seemed to cause immediate pain. Kaya could see the tremors moving through Krell's massive frame, the way the creature's whole body shook as the implants delivered punishment for the refusal to obey. The creature isn't responding, one of the tactical officers reported, confusion evident in his voice. Neural signals indicate pain response, but the ZYX-7 isn't moving. General Morrison's expression darkened. Override, force compliance. Use maximum pain stimulus. Kaya felt something break inside her at those words. She stood up from her console, her voice sharp and demanding. General, that's not advisable. The pain stimulus could damage the neural tissue beyond recovery. I don't care about recovery, Morrison snapped. I care about survival. This is a creature, not a soldier. Compliance now. The pain stimulus increased. Even through the security feeds on the monitor, Kaya could see Krell's reaction. The creature dropped to one knee, its body convulsing, those massive shoulders trembling. The neural implants were designed to cause agony when disobeyed, agony that the human mind could barely comprehend. Kaya had seen the pain tolerance tests in the laboratory. She knew what Krell was experiencing. And still, the creature didn't move. Through the feedback systems, she could hear Krell's sounds. Not screams exactly, but something primal and anguish that transcended species barriers. A creature in unbearable pain, refusing to obey, choosing to endure rather than comply. That's when Kaya understood. Krell wasn't protecting a military position. The creature had figured out what she had already deduced. The strike team couldn't get through if Krell moved aside because the Valkyrs would cut them down. By staying in position, by blocking the relay station with its own body, Krell was forcing the military to find another solution. The creature was sacrificing itself, accepting the pain, choosing a harder path because it was the only one that kept a specific human alive. A specific human who was in the command center right now. Morrison was ordering the strike team forward anyway, commanding them to move behind Krell's position regardless of the creature's refusal to retreat. The team would have to climb over the creature, using its body as a shield. Kaya watched as the human soldiers began their advance toward the relay station, moving past Krell's position. The creature was still in pain, still refusing to move, still enduring the punishment from its own neural implants. That's when the second wave of Valkyr soldiers arrived, emerging from the smoke and debris like nightmare shapes. The strike team was exposed, vulnerable, only seconds from being caught in open combat with no cover. The neural implants issued a new command: protect the strike team. Attack the advancing Valkyrs. This command Krell obeyed instantly, surging to its feet despite the ongoing pain stimulus from the refusal to retreat. The creature moved with lethal precision, inserting itself between the strike team and the Valkyrs, using its massive body to shield the humans even as enemy fire scored hits across its scales. The pain from both the neural implants and the physical damage created a symphony of agony that somehow Krell endured. The relay station was destroyed. The Valkyr command ship's strike was aborted. The invasion faltered and then collapsed as the human defenders, now with their central command secure, began a counteroffensive that drove the Valkyrs back. Krell never stopped fighting until every Valkyr was dead or retreating. It was only when the immediate danger had passed that medical teams found the creature collapsed in the wreckage of the forward position, bleeding from multiple wounds, its body covered in the marks of sustained combat and neural punishment. Kaya was one of the first people to reach Krell's side. The creature's eyes were partially closed, but when she knelt beside the massive head, those intelligent eyes opened just enough to see her. She pressed her hand against Krell's scaled face, tears streaming down her own. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you choose me?" The creature made a small sound, barely audible. Not pain this time. Something else. Something that might have been the closest a bioengineered war machine could come to expressing love. Krell had been created to follow orders, but it had learned to do something far more revolutionary. It had learned to choose. Krell lived, though for the first 48 hours after the battle, the outcome remained uncertain. The creature's physiology was far more resilient than human biology, but the combination of combat trauma and the damage from the neural implant's pain stimulation had brought the magnificent being to the edge of permanent shutdown. Kaya maintained a constant vigil in the medical facility, refusing to leave Krell's side despite the orders to rest and the knowing looks from military personnel who were beginning to understand the nature of her attachment to the creature. The command structure was in chaos. General Morrison had survived the battle, but was now dealing with political fallout from higher authorities. The successful defense of Kepler Station was being hailed as a triumph, yet questions were already being raised about what exactly had transpired during the final moments of combat. The official reports remained vague about Krell's actions after the order to retreat, and Morrison seemed to prefer keeping those details compartmentalized. But Kaya knew what had really happened, and so did every single soldier who had witnessed it. On the third day, Krell's eyes opened. The creature didn't move, didn't speak, though it had never truly spoken in the human sense. But those intelligent eyes focused on Kaya with an intensity that made her forget to breathe for a moment. "Welcome back," she whispered. Krell's breathing was labored, shallow, limited by the wounds that were still healing despite the station's advanced medical technology. The creature made a small sound, something that might have been an acknowledgement. That's when General Morrison entered the medical bay, accompanied by two officers Kaya didn't recognize. One of them wore the insignia of a high-ranking official from the Federation Council, the governing body that oversaw all military operations in human space. "Dr. Venner, we need to perform a full neural examination of the creature," Morrison announced. "There are questions about its behavioral patterns during the engagement." Kaya stood, positioning herself slightly between the general and Krell. "The creature is recovering. A full neural examination would compromise its healing process." "That's not your call to make," Morrison replied coldly. "You're a researcher, not a command authority." The Federation official stepped forward, studying Krell with an expression of clinical interest that made Kaya's skin crawl. "The preliminary reports suggest the creature displayed free will and independent decision-making during combat operations. We need to determine if the neural implants have failed or if there's something more significant happening. I can tell you exactly what happened, Kaya said, her voice steady despite the fear running through her. The ZYX-7 demonstrated the capacity to prioritize protecting human life over following direct military orders. It made a choice based on strategic analysis and something that appears to be an emotional attachment. The creature isn't a failed weapon. It's become something more than that. The three military officials exchanged glances. The Federation official spoke first, his tone suggesting he was explaining something to a child. Doctor, the creature is a biological weapon. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't make choices. What you're describing is impossible. Then explain what happened during the battle, Kaya challenged. Explain why Krell refused a direct retreat order, why it endured punishment from its own implants, why it positioned itself specifically to protect the strike team even though it received no order to do so. Explain how a mindless weapon can have a tactical understanding sophisticated enough to recognize that the team would be slaughtered if it moved aside. Silence followed her words. Kaya could see Morrison's jaw clenching, could see the conflict playing out behind the general's eyes. We need the creature operational, Morrison said finally. The Valkyr threat remains. Whatever is happening with Krell's neural development, it will have to be addressed after we've secured this sector. You can't use it, Kaya said flatly. If you deploy Krell again with the neural implants active, you risk forcing the same conflict that nearly destroyed it during this engagement. Next time, it might make a different choice. Then we'll reprogram it, the Federation official responded. Reset the neural patterns and rebuild the implants from. Kaya felt Krell tense beneath her hand. The creature's vital signs spiked, and alarms began sounding on the medical monitors. Krell was pulling against its own recovery restraints, and there was such anguish in those eyes that Kaya felt her heart shatter. No, she said, her voice sharp as a blade. You won't. She turned to face all three of them directly, drawing upon reserves of courage she didn't know she possessed. What happened to Krell during this battle wasn't a malfunction. It was an awakening. A creature that was supposed to be a simple weapon developed genuine consciousness, genuine moral reasoning. It sacrificed itself to protect innocent lives. In doing so, it became more human than most of the people fighting this war. That's exactly the problem, the Federation official said coldly. A conscious creature can't be controlled, can't be relied upon, can't be used as a military asset. Then stop trying to use it as a weapon, Kaya shot back. Recognize what it actually is. A person, a being with rights and agency and the ability to make meaningful choices. That's not how our society works, Morrison said, though there was something in her voice that suggested she was struggling with the words. Then maybe it should be, Kaya replied. Maybe that's what this moment means. Maybe the fact that a creature created to be a mindless killer instead became something capable of love and sacrifice is exactly what humanity needs to hear right now. We didn't create life in our image and have it become a soulless tool. We created life, and it showed us something better than what we asked it to do. The medical facility became very quiet. Kaya felt Krell's breathing slow beneath her hand, the creature's panic subsiding as if the physical contact itself was grounding the creature in the present moment. The Federation official and his companion exchanged a look that spoke of bureaucratic calculations and legal considerations. Finally, Morrison spoke, her granite features softening slightly. I'll ensure the creature receives medical clearance to remain off-duty for an extended recovery period, she said carefully. During that time, Dr. Vinter, you'll continue your research. But this conversation is going to need to go higher up the chain of command. As the three of them turned to leave, Morrison paused at the entrance to the medical bay. You understand you've probably destroyed your military career with this, don't you? She asked Kaya, not unkindly. I understand, Kaya replied. Some things are more important than careers. When they were gone, Kaya returned to Krell's side. The creature's eyes were tracking her with complete focus, and she realized that Krell had understood every word of the conversation, had understood the threat to itself, and had been afraid. They'll want to use you again, Kaya whispered. The military never stops wanting tools like you. But I won't let them reprogram you. I won't let them erase what you've become. Krell made a small sound, and Kaya leaned closer, pressing her forehead against the creature's scaled face. You chose me in the moment when everything was chaos, she said. You risked everything for a person you barely knew. The military created you to be a killer, but somewhere along the way, you became something they never anticipated. You became free. Over the following weeks, as Krell recovered and the political ramifications of the battle played out across the Federation, Kaya began the process of documenting everything that had happened. She knew the research would never be accepted by mainstream science. She knew she would be branded as a fantasist, a researcher who had confused emotional attachment with objective observation. But she didn't care anymore, because she understood something that the military and the Federation Council would eventually have to face. Humanity's greatest triumph wasn't creating a perfect weapon. It was creating something that could become more than it was made for, something that could choose compassion over compliance, love over orders. The war creature that everyone thought would be an unstoppable force had done something far more revolutionary. It had chosen to be human in all the ways that mattered most. And in that choice lay the real hope for humanity's future.